So today I'm going to work on fixing this antique dresser up a little bit. I think we paid $200 for it or something, maybe $250, and it had already been refurbished, but there were a few things that need to be done still, because I'll show you one of them right here. There was a large crack just where the wood had separated over the years, running along there, and it looks like she must have filled it with wood putty or something, but just from moving it into the house, the putty started to crack. That crack has gotten wider, so I'm going to attempt to fill that, and I'll show you when I get to it how I do. Just my technique that I'm going to try. And I'm also going to finish this top a little bit more. I think I'm going to put some, it's called Briwax. If you've never used it, I'll show you when we get to it. And I also have some of this Walrus oil furniture butter. I've never used this. I'm not 100% sure I'm still going to use it for this project, but it does have a matte and satin finish, which is what I'm looking for. I still want to keep it to look like a, flat finish, satin finish. But another thing I'm going to do, hear my old knees popping. These drawers are very difficult. Not very difficult, but they're hard to slide in and out. Mainly just because they're antique and not really on tracks. So I'm going to also put some Briwax on the wood inside, just to create a smoother surface for the drawers to slide on. But I'll show you that too when I get to it. But first things first, I'm going to go ahead and fill this crack here. I'm going to try to restain it. I'm not really going to fill it, but I'm going to try to color it again so it's not that bare wood putty color. And then I'm going to try a couple other things. I mixed up a little bit of stain here. I'm hoping it's similar to the color. I believe that's Kona, or it is Kona, and it's weathered oak. That weathered oak has a slightly grayish tint to it, which this top kind of does, but more of the browns, and I think it'll fill in there nicely, and then when I put the wax on, it'll cover it up nice. I'm going to apply it with just a little old paintbrush. I haven't tried it yet, so I'm not sure how it's going to look, how well it's going to stain. Might take a couple tries, but I'm going to go ahead and hit this entire crack and come back and show what it looks like whenever it's dried a little bit. So it's darkening that wood putty a little bit. I've also got some on the edges, but I'm hoping that, and again, I'm not an expert. I'm sure there's people that are going to probably tell me I'm doing things completely wrong, if anybody actually watches this, but this is just my technique. I'm hoping some of that extra stain that spilled off on the side, I got a little crazy there. I'm hoping that will dry a little bit less noticeable, and also whenever I put the wax on, that it'll cover it up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and fill a couple more of these spots, and then I'll be back when I'm done. Okay, so I've got both of these. Walrus oil. No walrus is harmed. It's a furniture butter, oil and wax wood finish. I'm going to use this first because I feel like it'll penetrate into the wood better, and then it'll give it that kind of waxy finish. If I need to, if I don't like it, I might come back with this Briwax. it's clear, but it will have more of a glossy finish. So I'm going to try to avoid the Briwax unless I don't like how the Walrus oil is going. But I'll show you how to apply this stuff. I've actually got to look over the instructions a little bit myself, but I'm guessing it's probably similar to the Briwax, and I've used it quite a bit. So I'll be right back. So there's the instructions. Stir well, handcrafted, all that. Says apply a thin layer of finish to the entire surface and let sit for 24 hours and then buff away excess. Allow 24 to 48 hours to dry. So luckily my wife's not going to be home for about 36 hours. So that should give it at least a little bit of time to dry. But I'm going to go ahead and start applying. To stir this, I'm just going to use this broken wooden skewer that I broke pulling out of the drawer full of crap in the kitchen. Then I'm going to throw it in this Walmart bag that we have a million of because we spend too much money at Walmart. Here we go. I don't even know how much stirring this stuff really needs. But this is very difficult to do with one hand, so I'm going to put the phone down and hold this and stir it as well as I can, and I'll be back. So I've stirred it. It's turned into the consistency of almost like Elmer's glue, but obviously a different color. Much thinner than Briwax. Has almost no smell, which is cool because the Briwax is a little bit stronger scented. So at least this won't stink the whole room up if it works by itself. I'm going to apply it just using this lint-free cloth, wearing rubber gloves because this stuff will get on your skin. I'm guessing it's probably not very harmful, but I still don't want it all over me. So I'm going to start applying and see what happens. So first of all, I'm going to apply just a small amount of this towards the back here somewhere, just to see if I like what it does to the wood. I'm also going to apply just a little bit over the top of this area where it's stained. Hair on there. To see if it'll cover up them stain marks a little bit. Otherwise I'm going to have to probably figure something out, but let me go ahead and apply just a little bit on there. Start working it in. Now this is supposed to dry as a matte finish, like I said earlier. And I also want to say, not that it really needs to be said, but Walrus oil or Walrus butter, Walrus oil furniture butter, Briwax, neither one are sponsors, because why would they sponsor a channel that's lucky to get, I mean, so far, I'll get there eventually, but I'll be lucky if this video gets 10 views, so I highly doubt that one of these companies would want to sponsor me right now, but I'm going to let that sit for a little bit, see how it starts to look after a while. It's going to be really hard to tell because it takes a while to cure. And then it's right over the top of where I tried to fill that crack. Sorry about the heavy breathing. Some people are a fan of that kind of thing. I was laying flooring yesterday and my legs hurt. And you can still kind of see that white's there. You can kind of see that darker stain there. I don't really like that. But I'll let it sit for a little bit and come back and see how it's looking. One thing I did want to say, like I said earlier, I've never used the Walrus oil. I have used Briwax. One thing I like about Briwax is that it will fill these cracks. It'll actually get in there and harden, and those cracks will be basically filled. Obviously it's not structural or anything, but I don't plan on moving this dresser really anymore. And I think it'll fill it well enough where it won't continue to crumble out. And I'm not sure that this stuff's thick enough to do that, but we'll see. So it's been about 20 minutes. It's not really done much yet. I'm sure it'll soak in more and penetrate the wood more. Obviously it said 48 hours, but I'm an impatient person. And I'm almost positive I'm going to have to use some of this Briwax anyway to fill these cracks. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply the rest of it, or finish applying to the top of this with the Walrus oil. And then I'll come back with the Briwax. And try to actually, I think I'm going to try to mix it in with the Walrus oil a little bit while it's still wet. Because hopefully that Walrus oil will help make the Briwax have a little bit more of a matte finish. I could be totally wrong, but we're going to try it. Another thing that's good about this, this wood was not really sealed. It'll get rings on it, if we set a drink on it or whatever. This stuff will seal it. This is pretty much waterproof, oil-based, so it's nice to have a finish anyway. I'm just hoping it doesn't dry too dark or look wrong when I'm done. But I think my wife will like it. She wasn't real thrilled with the look, obviously, with the cracks and stuff like that. Right now I'm just kind of applying a thicker layer. Not really thick, but I'm not working it in too terribly much. I'm going to get it covered. Or I'm going to get the whole top of it covered. I'm also trying to get along the back side. I think whenever I do the video for the drawer slides, I'm just going to make a separate video because this is probably going to end up being a fairly long video anyway. But what I'm going to do is just get a layer on the entire top of this thing, cover the whole thing, and then come back and work it in better once I've got the whole thing covered. Make sure you get along the sides. You don't want to have any happy little accidents, or I guess you do. If they worked out okay for Bob Ross, happy accidents, they can work out for anybody. See how that stuff just, it doesn't really, I mean, it does get into those cracks, but it also kind of runs down in there too. This is definitely heavier on the oil than the Briwax is. But anyway, I'm going to finish this up and then I'll let it sit for a little bit. So as you can see, or maybe not, kind of see them little chunks. More of this wood filler's working its way out as I rub it in. I'll come back and wipe that off. I did want to say, I wasn't trying to talk bad on the person we bought this from. She actually does really nice work. She's local. And the stuff she makes looks really nice. This just happened to fail on that seam, and I wanted to seal it. She did exactly what I asked her to do. I'm not going to call her business out or anything like that, but just wanted to say I'm not faulting her necessarily, because I knew this wasn't a structural, complete rehab or restoration of this piece whenever I took it to her. And we actually have another dresser that's similar to this one that's got the same color scheme on it. I'm going to have to do a little bit of work on it too, especially now I'm going to have to try and doctor it up and make it match this, but almost there. It's definitely getting darker. I'm really hoping it dries a little lighter than that, but the wood grains it's pulling out is really cool. I do like that. Anyway, onward. Okay, so I've got a layer, one coat on so far. Still got some swirls in it, still wet. Like I said, it should dry, more of a matte finish. But I'm also going to use the Briwax, and I don't think that it's a matte finish. It's just clear Briwax. Try and get some of these. What the heck is that? Another chunk of wood filler or something there. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put some Briwax on and hope it mixes in with the matte finish a little bit, but then also fills these cracks. So there's a before. I don't know how well you can see that. Try and get in close on it. It's hard to show, but it's got a pretty decent sized crater there that I'm going to try to fill in. So I'm going to start applying that. As you can see, the Briwax has a much thicker consistency than the other stuff. Not quite a... It is more like a paste. But I'm going to go ahead and apply it with the same rag I was using, since it's going to mix anyway. Sorry, I'm a terrible camera person. Cameraman. That flash, I need the light because the lighting's crappy in here, but it's super bright when I first start recording. Got a little bit on my rag, got a little bit over here already. I'm just going to start working it in. And you can see, you can actually do multiple layers of this stuff too, and it'll fill the cracks in more, but as I work it, it works its way into those cracks, fills them. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this all over the top, and then I'll come back and show what that looks like. So how's everybody doing today? It's Sunday. My kids are home from school. My 11-year-old's currently in his bedroom not feeling good. Seems like the kids are sick constantly anymore these days. Either respiratory or some kind of flu. Or stomach bug or whatever. See, it looks super thick, but I'll work it in more as I go. Got a pleasant surprise at 4:30 in the morning. My 11-year-old was violently sick in the bathroom. I'll spare you the details, but it was not pleasant. But, so that's how my day was going last night. Today's been okay. I'll work on this for a while. This stuff smells so strong. It's not as bad as like spray paint or something, but it does have an odor to it. Work on this for a while though, and I'm going to clean the house up. My wife's a travel nurse, so she's out of town. She's currently on a contract at a prison. She stays down there whenever she works longer shifts, which is what she's working today. So I'm going to try to get the house back in order for her before she gets home. Like I said, it's been a mess because we've been swapping bedrooms. We just got this bedroom switched out. This room I'm in now used to be my youngest son's bedroom that they shared. And then my daughter had another room upstairs, and then me and my wife shared a room upstairs. But we had an egress window put in a couple years ago so that now my daughter can safely have a room downstairs and still have a fire escape if she needs it. Very important. Trying to get a big glob of this time to try and get real good in that crack. I'm just going to mush it in there. There you go. Make that crack happy. Fill that thing in there with that, some of that good wax. So anyhow, daughter moved downstairs, so my youngest took her old room. My 11-year-old took took our old room, and then my wife and I moved into my youngest son's bedroom to share it, obviously, because it's a little bit bigger, and we have a gigantic bed. I mean, it's king size, but if anybody has a king size bed, they know how big they are. And it's on a big frame, so we needed the extra room. But, so when she left, when my wife left for work the other day, the house was still kind of crazy. It still kind of is. I've worked on it some, but try and get it completely sorted back out again before she gets home, so she can come home to some peace and quiet after working hard for a few days. Sorry if my camera skills are awful. This is hard on the old back. I'm 39 years old, and sometimes I feel like I'm 70. But I did say I was installing flooring yesterday, and that's definitely made me sore. Typically don't have back problems, which is good. My brother does. Poor guy's back's bothering him today. I've had a couple times where my back's hurt a little bit, but any of you guys have, I'm sure a lot of you guys, of all the 10 people that might end up watching this, maybe I'll get lucky. If any of you guys deal with chronic back pain though, and I think his is like in his upper shoulder area, kind of, not really shoulder, but kind of below his shoulder blade. Any solutions you have, or any tips or advice on things he can try would be much appreciated, because I know he's miserable. Anyhow, I'm talking way too much and this video is getting way too long, so I'm going to finish this up. Onward. Okay, I've got a layer, one coat of the Briwax over the top of everything. See, it's thick in places. I'm going to take my rag and wipe it down real good and massage it in a little better. Try and get some of that excess off. One thing I did want to say about Briwax, though, for any of you that have never used it and are looking for an awesome product, if you have wood that's rough, unsanded, they also make it tinted, different colors. They have like a rustic pine, I'm sure. I think I got some more of an oak type of color out in my garage. But it'll take rough and unsanded wood, and since it's a waxy finish, it will kind of make it smooth to the touch without taking away the rustic look to it, if that makes any sense. You don't have to sand the wood to make it a little more pleasant to touch and a little more smooth, and once the stuff dries, there's no residue or anything left over. It's actually completely smooth and pleasant to the touch. It's nice stuff to touch when it's dry. Wood feels nice. Totally lost my train of thought there too. Still don't love how that crack's looking. That stain didn't take very well on that wood paste, but I guess it is what it is. At least this will seal it and cover up and hopefully keep it from cracking out anymore. Yeah, I'm gonna wipe off as much of this excess as I can and then let it sit for a little while and see what it looks like. Okay, so you can still see some swirls. That's not a big deal. When it dries and starts to cure, they'll go away. So there's still a little bit of excess on there, but I think I'll let this dry and probably put at least one more coat on, because once this stuff in the crack dries, it'll be easier to apply more on top of it. I might try to doctor that crack up a little more, but that's it for now. I'll make another video showing what the top looks like when it's cured, but that has to wait a while, and I've got this on my phone and I suck at editing, which is why my content is mediocre most of the time. But yeah, I'll make another video when it's done and cured, and maybe after I apply another layer, and show you what the pretty much finished result's going to look like. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and pull these drawers out. That's also going to be in another video. Show you the slide mechanism, and then apply some of the Briwax to the drawer slides, because the same concept applies. It'll smooth the slides out. I'm going to put some Briwax on the bottom of the drawers too, and hopefully it'll make a more smoother surface for the drawers to slide over each other, because they're old and their only drawer mechanism on the inside is just basically wood on wood. So that'll do for today, or for now. I'm going to go ahead and do the other video here in a little bit, and then I'll get it uploaded, so you can also check that out if you're interested in how the drawer slides look. I mean, it's not going to be anything fancy. I'm not doing it for cosmetic on those. I'm just doing it for functionality. But I think the wax will be a good solution for that. But if you're interested in that, make sure to check out my other video. If you like mediocre content with heavy breathing and some crappy inspirational stuff here and there maybe, or whatever else I feel like talking about, go ahead and like and subscribe. I have a lot of stuff to say. I'm actually thinking about starting a podcast. or I am going to start a podcast with a buddy of mine, because we both have things to say. I have to work on my podcast voice, though, reduce some of the heavy breathing. That's not a plug for my podcast or our podcast, because we haven't even filmed a single episode yet, but I just figured I'd throw that in there. Alright, thanks for watching. Thanks for bearing with me and making it through this video. And I'll see you next time.